not Aesop, but some of these others, it helps. It helps make our case. Quotes Menander. Titus 1, 10 to 13. Titus 1, 10 to 13. Paul may be quoting one of the Stoics. Titus 1, 10 to 13. Paul is quoting a Stoic concept. And the last one is Acts 26, 14. Acts 26, 14. Paul is quoting a poet called Aeschylus. Let me put his name up. Aeschylys. By the way, you'll see different spellings on some of these names. You've heard the phrase it loses something in translation. So we go from one language to another, we can get some different spelling. Now let me give you one more, not from Paul this time, but from Jude. In Jude 14:15. Now how many chapters does Jude have? One. So when you quote from Obadiah, Jude, 2 John, 3 John, these little books with one chapter, you don't say chapter 1. You just give the verse reference and you'll look real smart. So Jude 14:15. That is a story Jude is using from the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch is becoming very popular. People are reading the book of Enoch and trying to find out truth, which, be careful, the book of Enoch is not scriptural. It wasn't even written by Enoch. All right, so you've got some. Now, having said that, let's look at some of these events here. You will notice that beginning at 431 BC, the Peloponnesian Wars, where you've written Nehemiah and Malachi. That's Athens against Corinth and Sparta. Now we're in the period between the Testaments. Before that, we have kind of an introduction, so you can see where Buddha fits in, and Confucius and Lao Tzu, and the Persian Empire is established, the Roman Republic's established. But beginning with that, 431, we're in the time between the Testaments, and look at the world events. Peloponnesian Wars, the birth of Plato, the death of Herodotus, the fall of Athens, the death of Socrates. And how did Socrates die? Suicide, yeah. The birth of Aristotle. And then in 367, Aristotle enters Plato's academy. Death of Plato. And then Alexander the Great, 336. Alexander dies. Roman ascension, Spartacus. Remember that movie? Spartacus. Pompey enters Jerusalem. Oh, that's bad for the Jews. Caesar assassinated. And then if you'll put the last thing there, 4 to 7. Somewhere between 4 to 7 BC, the birth of Jesus Christ. Now again, our purpose here is for you to have it driven into your mind and drive it into the minds of your students, your Sunday school class, people who depend on you to preach, teach, that these are real world events that everybody knows about, and we want to see the comparison as far as how that figures with some of the events of the Scripture. All right, any questions on the chronology? Okay.
There's a wall behind you. Behind the wall is a world event map.
Oh, I saw that.
And I think you could probably look those up pretty easy on that.
Yeah, you really could. That's the one that runs the whole length of that wall. Yeah. Yeah, I went back there for a few minutes and memorized that whole thing.
First one I meditated.
In my dreams. Okay, let's label the next part of our notes sects of the Jews, S-E-C-T-S. And we'll go into some detail on these because now we are defining words, peoples that we've heard about all of our lives. So we'll take some time and go into some detail on some of these groups. One of these groups will be a bit of a surprise to you, I think. But the rest of them you've heard before. So let's get a word in our mind that'll be very, very important. And the word is Hellenism. Hellenism. It has nothing to do with torment, it has something to do with something else. There's a little rough breathing mark there. Now that's an interesting word. We put this in English, looks like this, and with the rough breathing mark there in Greek, it's pronounced like this, Hellas. What country is that?
Greece.
That's right, that's Greece. So when we talk about Hellenism, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we're talking about Greek influence. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, that we want to have a clear understanding of the danger, and we'll talk about the source when we get to the story. Folks, we're still in the defining period, defining these concepts, and we'll tell the story. But I want you to have this firmly in your mind, that these Jewish sects we're going to talk about result from a clash between Hellenism and the Jewish religion and culture. Do we see any modern day parallels with culture invading even the church? Oh my goodness gracious. Every day, every day. Now, I know that people my age and up and down my age do this all the time, but I think it's valid. My wife and I have not had television for, I think, 4 or 5 years, and I'm not saying that so that you think, oh, he's so holy. No, that's not it at all. I'm just cheap. I'm not paying for it. It's simple. $50 a month? I don't think so. So my kid said, well, Dad, do you know what Netflix is? I said, I have an idea what Netflix is. He said, for $8 a month, you can get all these extraordinary, there's all kinds of stuff. So we got Netflix a few months ago. So the other night, my wife and I are sitting down, and we're watching Andy Griffith. And you talk about violence and vulgarity. I mean, that's... So we're watching Andy Griffith. And I checked when that particular episode was filmed. And that particular episode that we watched was filmed in 1961. I think that show started around 59, and then they ruined it when it went to color around 65 or 60. So we've all seen the show, and oh my goodness, you look at it, and bad words, no. Bad scenes, no. Bad concepts, no. In fact, every episode, almost every episode, taught a moral issue. It might be crime doesn't pay. It might be show compassion to people. But so as I'm sitting there, you know what went through my mind? Same thing going through your mind right now. What a difference that 60 years has made. I'll be 50, 53, 54 years, whatever. What a difference. What a difference. Years ago, just a few years ago, I was speaking at a youth rally. This is 3 years ago, maybe 2. And they asked me to come up to this place and put on a martial arts program. I've done 700 of those things in the last 50 years. So I put this martial arts program on, and afterwards I made a challenge to the kids. I said, sometime ask somebody who's my age, what was entertainment, what was your little world like 55, 60 years ago? So this girl came up, and she was 15, 16 years old, that's 10th grade, and she said, I want to know, what was it like? So I sat down with her and talked to her a few minutes. She said, I just can't believe it. I said, well, that's what it was like. That's what it was like. Well, now look what it's like. Now, I want that word firmly in your mind, because beginning with Alexander the Great, and later through his 4 generals, Alexander's goal, we're going to talk in some detail about Alexander. I don't know if we'll get to it this afternoon. But Alexander had the goal of spreading Hellenism, Greek thought, the Greek way of doing things. And we'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That'd be a great title for a movie, don't you think? Oh, wait a minute. 68, it's been done, sorry. Some of Greek thought was good. Some of their ideas were good. Some of their architecture was good. But basically, this is a rotten way of looking at the world. It's terrible. It's amoral. It's bad, bad, bad. So the Jews could not escape confronting this. And there were 3 answers to Hellenism. Just as today there are three answers to the culture coming into our churches, coming into our families, coming into our own lives. There are three answers. Answer number one, let's combine the two. Now, we're between the testaments now. Some Jewish people said, we'll talk about the groups we're talking about, said, let's combine Hellenism with Judaism. Well, can you see a barrel in your mind? You see a barrel? And in the middle of that barrel is full of apples. You know where I'm going with this. And in the middle of those